All right, everybody, welcome to another exciting edition to the Grassroots Warrior Network. And of course, one of our, I don't want to say ex-anchor, Sherri, you're changing directions. You're going to be back, I hope, with a lot of
Yeah.
great content, but we're going to get back into, I think, your purpose, which I'm excited for. You're talking about your new book in your
Mhm.
schools, and where's Sherri Divband going from here? I want to know.
Well, thanks for having me on your channel, and yeah, I know I'm so proud to be a part of this network, the Grassroots Warriors Network. So it's nothing personal, but yeah, I'm just taking a break, just to focus on. I felt like I was getting sidetracked with doing all these interviews and pulling people in, and it was taking me away from my work. And so I've decided just to pull back on interviews for a little bit of time and focus on what I need to get done, which is working. Tirelessly on the children's educational platform. But this new book, I'm really excited about it, Kevin, because I feel like it's a different version of me. And I've done a couple chats with a few people a couple days ago and yesterday, and I was saying how this is like a spiritually evolved version of myself, I think, because the first two books that I like the first two books that I wrote in 2019 and 2020, I was trying to play it safe, which I think I tend to be that type of a person. I don't like to piss people off. I don't like to choose sides. I try to remain as neutral as possible. And I think being a mom has taught me that. And so sometimes I forget that it's okay to really put yourself out there. And I think that this book is that it's me. I'm constantly telling my husband, oh, I can't talk about that. I don't want to make anybody mad. And, my reputation is really important. So I can't have a bunch of people judging me based on the things that I say, because then what happens is it gets away from the whole purpose and the whole point is to help children and education. And if it gets sidetracked because people are mad at me because I'm talking about Trump or something else, then it triggers people in a negative way. And we all know what way that is, and who I'm talking about. And but it just distracts, and it's not conducive. It's not helpful. And so I've really played it safe for the last few years because of that. But when I got the nudge, I mean, I'm quick. When I put my mind to something, I do it. I don't second guess. I don't wait around. When I have a grand vision, I put all my effort and energy into it. And that's how sometimes it gets me into trouble because I do too many things wholeheartedly and then I'm just like burned out. But I got the idea to write. I wrote my first book in 3 weeks. I wrote my second book in a couple of months. And this book I started, I think in April and early April, and I finished it within 2 months. And now editing took longer than it took to write it, because the editing process for any book is crazy because there's layers to it and more than one person needs to read it. So that's the process in and of itself. But when I was ready to write this book, I had this divine inspiration that I have so much information that I learn in my sessions. And I was like, more people need to know this, because I don't know how many people are watching me on YouTube or on interviews that I do or on Rumble or wherever I'm talking. And I'm like, this is information that everyone needs to have access to, regardless of if they watch these platforms or not. And so I put all of my effort and so much energy and time into outlining what I believe to be a very, very well interpreted and collected, compilation of my sessions and information that is relevant right now for the collective, because discernment, I think, is what most people are working through right now. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but there's so much distraction and people are really tuning in to that intuition and that gut feeling of, is this right? Is this person right? Should I follow them? Should I follow her? And it's a
Right.
testament to our spiritual evolution right now. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. In fact, I said, 5 or 6 years ago, it was the story that can't be told that has to be learned. And that pissed me off. I'm like, just tell me, right? And now
Mhm.
I've done a little research and I'm like, holy, now I get it, because I wouldn't have believed them if they told me, just like people don't believe me. And now they tell me, the answers are inside you. You already know the answers. And at first I was mad at that one too, but I'm starting to catch on finally, because
Yeah.
especially when we're under fear, we look for that outside source for confirmation or to tell us the answer. But the truth is, we know. Happiness is inside of everybody watching. It's just, you got to find it for yourself, and I can't give it to you. I wish I could, you know what I mean? But no, I think I always think you're 100% spot on, to be honest. I think we're way ahead of your time, Sherri, and I can't wait to read this book just because I know you. Again, I know you now. So you got my interest, girl. You had it for a long time. So I'm excited about it. Now, what is the book? It's just based on sessions you've had with other people. Explain a little more of that.
Yeah, it's a combination. I separated it into three parts. So it's called Starseeds and the Great Awakening. And it's all about navigating 3D interference, healing your soul, and shifting humanity into the golden age. And so what that means and is in the book. But there's three parts. So the first part is about starseed origins, and the misdirection and misguidance that we have as a collective, unfortunately, as a result of I call them the dark players. That's my word. That's how I describe, the powers that were and all the names they have for them. I use the dark players. And so I talk about how they mislabel. We have to stop labeling our children, because then we have the adults that are labeled with I can't tell you how many adult clients I have that are getting labeled with ADHD at 30, 40, 50 years old, and now they're getting on medication. And I'm like, man, you made it this far. But it's not accurate. And so I talk about the energetic explanation of ADHD, autism, Asperger's, what the dark players are doing to push those, and what the actual energetic reasoning behind it is. And it's also a combination. It's 3D interference, and it's also with vaccines and things like that, and toxins. So yes, there is some nefarious things going on, but ultimately the energetic and spiritual resonance of these souls coming through are really struggling in this lifetime, because their bodies our physical bodies haven't been able to withhold a lot of the energy that they come in with. So there's side effects, there's spiritual side effects, but they are beautiful gifts, and they're coming in to be different. So I talk about all of that in part one. And then part two is kind of the meat and potatoes of the book, because I go in and I explain 3D interference. People need to understand all the things that the dark players do to us from the time we're born throughout our entire life to block us. People always say, Sherri, how do I raise my vibration? How do I spiritually evolve? How do I do this? And people what they don't realize is the first part of that is recognizing all the things that are done to us to block us. And once the beautiful thing about it is sometimes it's just knowledge. It's just knowing. Just once you know it, then you can see through the illusion. You start to think differently. You act differently. Energetically, you shift. Your mindset changes, and everything else shifts along with it. So I go through all of the things that I've learned in my sessions with children and adults that I had no idea about. So the things that I talk about are not things I've researched, and they're not things that I've sat in my room saying, God, please tell me about the X, Y, and Z. I don't have time for that. And that's not the type of person I am. Everything in this book is a compilation of information that I have gathered through thousands of sessions with children and adults all over this globe. I'm talking all corners of the globe, in different countries, genders, both male perspective, the female perspective, doesn't matter, the demographics, different financial backgrounds. I have talked to so many different types of people, and I have derived such a beautiful amount of information that sometimes my head is going to explode and I want to share it with the world. And I haven't really had a platform to do that until I started my channel a couple of years ago, and I started interviewing, and people are like, I want to know more. I want to know more. So I just lay it out in the book, and the 3D interference section is where I really go into, and we can talk about some of the examples I put in there. And then the third part of the book is me going into what I see in the future. And I'm not, Sylvia Brown, I'm not giving, these are not predictions. Again, these are things that I've learned in the sessions where I see a pattern. I'm like, wow, I see a lot of people going and doing this. I see a lot of people gravitating towards this. And I start to keep notes and document it. And that's what's in that section. Where are we going with the political arena? Where are we going with health and wellness? Where are we going with education? Where are we going with leadership? And I break it down in the third section of the book. And of course, I talk about Aramis Creative Learning Center, and I bring all of those elements and to bring outreach on the educational platform really is where I focus on the most. and the quantum I talk about the quantum military and where I see us going with the military. It's a lot. And honestly, I would not have been brave enough to publish something like this years ago, because I would have been afraid and I would have been in a place of fear, and I probably wouldn't have written the book, because I wouldn't have trusted my knowing and my divine, this is part of my divine plan, I believe, to bring the information forward. And now is the time to do it. And I feel very confident and comfortable putting it out there now. And
Wow.
we'll just see what happens.
Wow,
We'll see
Sherri.
what
Wow,
happens.
like I said, and I can't wait to see that. You are such a doer. And that's why I think I liked you. And you can't give yourself credit, but I will, for your prophetess. All the things that you've been talking about for years now. You've been doing this for a long time. A lot of those things make total sense to me. And with all the other pieces and different sources, it's all adding up. So again, you've helped me, and I think by sharing that, again, your voice, these experiences, that's what we're
Mhm.
talking about. It's not what someone told you, it's what you found on your own, and then you came to your own conclusions using your own critical thinking. And long before me and you ever met, and somehow I came to the same conclusions, even though we didn't know each other. You know what I mean? And that's I think that's
Mhm.
happening all over the planet. There's millions of us now. Again, if it's a globe, if it's a planet, even, I don't know. We've been lied to about so many things. And I don't know is a fair answer from Kevin Hoyt, because I don't know. I know what we were told is wrong. And I think it's very exciting for me to learn the truth. And you've helped me, Sherri. I want to go back to again, we talk about the autistic kids in the first part of your book, the Starseeds coming in, and how I've always compared it. And maybe I got this from you, or maybe at least partial. I think you agree. Like we're these infinite, incredible souls, everybody watching, everybody here. But some of the new kids, especially the autistic kids, we look at them as slow, right? But what's happening, I think, is there are these advanced souls that are like just zipping around doing whatever they want, and then boom, they hit the tar pit of Earth, right? Where it's a
Yeah.
lot heavier and thicker and denser, and they're not. So I think that's what's going on. And I've always had the theory that our Earth itself, the atmosphere is changing to the
Mhm.
point where I think those star seeds are going to be superstars. What do you think of that?
You're absolutely right. And I just want to say thank you for saying such kind things about me before you moved on. That was very nice. And that's why I do this. I really genuinely like to help in any way I can. But, I'm also a student. I'm a teacher, but I'm learning just alongside everyone else. And I think as long as we remain humble about it, that's how we evolve spiritually. We look to be guided just alongside of those that guide us. It's a beautiful synchronistic happening that I think that a lot of it gets overlooked, because we are in such a negative atmosphere here in the 3D. And so that is a part of it. So star seeds, we're all special. Everybody watching this, I don't care who you are. It's just a matter of how much your ego or your shadow side is activated, that pulls you in, or you're more susceptible to 3D interference. And so the star seeds, we're our most pure when we're children. We come in with a clean slate. A lot of people they don't agree with me, but I believe every soul comes in with a clean slate. Yes, they have past trauma that they need to work through, but their shadow side is in check, their ego is in check. But it's all about how they're brought up, how much they're loved, or their lack of love, and traumas that really shut the beautiful soul down, and the ego takes over and the shadow side takes over, and then they become negative, difficult people, arrogant people, conceited people, all of those things, because that the light inside them just dims. And so the starseed children that are coming in right now, many of them are more evolved than we are. And again, it's not a hierarchy, it's consciousness. We're talking about the evolution of our consciousness. And the more experience we have, the more evolved we are, the higher density we are, which means that we are at a higher frequency and we have a lot more energy. We are expansive. Our the auric field of some of these children can go out 15, 20 feet. An angry human being could be about 2 feet. Myself and most people that are good people, genuinely kind and in service to others and try to be more humble, um, could have an auric field of 6 to 10 feet. So that's a lot for the children to be out there almost 20 feet out. They're out there now. They're in the range of horses, and what horses can do to affect healing with people. So it's quite incredible. And so these spiritually evolved beings that are either Christed consciousness, or they are already enlightened. They volunteer to descend. So they come to this 3D and tar pit, like you called it, which Earth is such a beautiful place, but unfortunately,
Right.
it's become a tar pit as a result of the 3D interference and the dark players and what they have done. But it's a beautiful planet, and a lot of people theorize that we're going to be taken off as when we ascend. The ascension is about us being taken someplace else. And I don't resonate with that. I believe that we are going to stay here, and we're just going to go into a higher dimension as our densities shift and we become more evolved spiritually. But the children are already coming in that way. And so imagine these 3D bodies that are used to this density, the toxicity. I mean, generations over generations, the babies born, they're more kind of used to this environment. So these evolved starseeds that are coming through right now, again, doesn't mean they're better than us, but they are spiritually evolved. They volunteer to come in and help us. And so they are more expansive. They have more light. So their physical bodies have to adjust and adapt to the frequency that's coming through all the time, because they're so high density. And our bodies are kind of third density, but they're shifting. And that's what all these ascension symptoms are about. And so they come in and they're like, whoa, this is awkward. This is challenging. And so they walk different, they talk different, they react different to our food. They could be picky eaters. They won't look at people in the eyes because they've told me, they say, Sherri, I see their demons. I don't want to see. They see everything. They see beyond the physical eyes. So they see the auric field of people. They see the hitchhikers, the paranormal stuff. They see the angelics. They see everything. So when children are around adults and they don't want to look at them in the face, which a lot of children that are autistic won't look at, they have issue with eye contact because they can see into the soul, and it's very overwhelming for them because they see everything, the good, the bad, the lies, the intentions of that person, any demonic entities that might be with them. They see it all, and it's very overwhelming. So they don't want to see it. They prefer to look away because all of their senses are activated. It's not just the eyes, it's what they know, what they sense, what they feel, what they hear, all of it. And so the autistic labeled spectrum children, whatever you want to call them, really are divine souls that are here with spiritual gifts. They're here to slow us down. They're the nonverbal ones are here to encourage us to communicate through our heart space telepathically. So they don't speak, one, because they don't want to talk. They don't want to say our word spells because they know that the words are designed in a way that we are summoning demons and basically participating or consenting to their spells, whatever the spell is in the moment. So children won't say it because they know that our words have meaning behind them. So they don't want to speak our words, but they also come in without speaking because they want to encourage us to communicate telepathically, so we can heighten that sense again that we once had, but it's been bred out of us over time with genetic modification and all sorts of things that they've done to us. And so the children they're spiritually gifted. They're more multidimensional than previous generations. So they can think more quickly. They are out of the box thinkers. They're lie detectors. They can't sit still because they have a lot of energy. And honestly, human beings weren't designed to sit still in front of a computer for 6-8 hours a day, or children aren't supposed to be sitting at a desk learning all day, which really it's just they're being indoctrinated all day long. Our bodies need to move. We need to shift and balance the energy coming through. So if we get imaginative, creative energy that comes through, they go outside and they create, they run, they play outside, they communicate with the animals, whatever it is that they're doing. And our reality limits that. And so the starseeds are coming in and they're different for a reason, but they're here to change things, and not go with the norm of what previous generations have just accepted. They're saying no. They're saying no. Why does it have to be this way, Mom? Why does it have to be this way, Dad? I don't accept that. That's not right. And no longer are they accepting, oh, well, because I told you so, or why do we have to do this? Oh, because that's how it's always been done. They're like, no, I don't accept that answer. Whereas when I was a kid, I shut my mouth. I listened to my mom, and I did whatever I was told because I was afraid of the consequences. These kids, they don't care about consequences. They will tell you you're wrong. And that's by design. They're not terrible people. They're not difficult and trying to just, they're not horrible kids. They are here to be like, they're our teachers. They're our greatest teachers. And they're here to help us rethink
Something,
these choices.
something's making me question. I bet you were questioning. It seems hard for me to believe that you weren't a rebel rouser and someone who has been questioning things from the start, to be honest. You know,
Well, I'll
for
be
you to
honest with
say,
you.
I guess we all did because we didn't know, right? But I think we got a couple different levels of Starseeds. And I think the first level, like mom over here that I'm talking with, mom was ready to prepare the next one. I'm seeing a huge increase in the parenting skills, right? Like if for your daughter, for instance, right? Or there's so many others now, they're coming to parents that are absolutely awake, and that it's going to be a different life, a different education, a different everything for those kids because of the awesome moms like you. I mean, are you seeing the same thing with a lot of other mothers? It's not just the kids, moms are connected.
Yeah, well, and dads too, and
That,
grandparents. So they come in, a lot of them are coming into indigo families, which are, you know, anywhere from 30s to 70s. And they're the generation that were like, no, you know, let me start questioning things. And I did question a lot growing up. I did it more with my teachers. I have had a real problem with authority my whole life. Anybody, it doesn't matter who or what. I don't go with that. I've always questioned it. But the dynamics at home were different. I was afraid of my mom because, you know, she was an authoritative figure, and I didn't want to get in trouble, and so I kept my mouth shut. But I sure used that energy later at school to tell the teacher that they were wrong, but I would never say it to my mom. And so it's like, you know, I learned survival. You know, your survival of the fittest. I'm good. I'm good at surviving, and I think a lot of the star seeds are as well. And so that's what we're seeing right now. But this new generation, they're different. They don't accept no for an answer. They'll talk back. They'll say, no, you're lying. They'll tell you, you know, that doesn't make sense. You know, they don't have any fear.
that's God bless them, right? And that's kind of where you say you let go in this book. I thought you were doing pretty good as it is, but that's what the secret is. Letting go, I think, but then also part of the ascension process is being able to accept even the bad, because right now, at least, there's a lot of bad stuff in the world too. So being able to get hit with that's what gives us character, actually, right? Everybody can be top of the world, having a great day when stuff's rolling your way, but when stuff's not rolling your way is what gives us character, right? But I think that, again, that mess we call our life, your mess is your message. Mess, your life gets better with age, mess age, right? I think that's again, I think we were all, do you think we were all chosen? I think we were chosen plus we chose. I think it's a double-edged sword as far as the creator was. I think you were chose to be here as well as you volunteered, and I believe I did the same. What do you think?
Absolutely. I definitely think there's a give and take, and there is what's the word where you work together? Collaboration. That's the word. I love collaboration.
Yeah.
Because, you know, people don't realize the sacred contracts that they have when they come into their life. Imagine all the people that you ever met in your whole life, even for just a moment, that you still remember from passing, to the true, like, core sacred contracts. That would be, you know, your parents and you, or your children and yourself, or your spouse and yourself, or a best friend, things like that. Those are hard, those are core contracts. And we all have to agree ahead of time before we come in. And but then there's that veil of forgetfulness that I think is also important, because there is no way, if I knew from a young age what I would be doing now, I would have psyched myself out. I would have said no way. I wouldn't have been able to build the confidence. I think it's the life lessons and the not knowing that helps us build our character. And sometimes the challenges are a good thing, you know, and
Oh,
our
they
emotions
all
serve a
are.
purpose. So if we get
But
angry, that's our body's way of saying, hey, something's not right. You need to make a change. And instead of marinating in that anger and then projecting it onto everyone else, people need to really sit and reflect what that anger represents. And that's where true healing comes from. When you look at the situation and then you learn from it, you make different decisions moving forward. It alters your consciousness. You know, epigenetics is something I talk about in our book, because as a human species, over hundreds of thousands of years, we haven't really changed that much. We are just the same structure. It's not like we've grown, a seventh finger or things like that. Our bodies have pretty much stayed the same. And so we always have this junk DNA that the scientists talk about. And what I explain in the book is, I believe that junk, first of all, it's not junk DNA, it's deactivated DNA, because over time we haven't used that sixth sense that we have the ability to tap into, which the Starseed children do. And so it's about how we unlock it is not through scientific studies and all these studies that they're doing. To me, I laugh at that, because what they're
The
missing
opposite.
is that it's about our evolution, our consciousness. We have the ability to unlock that or activate that DNA ourselves through our spiritual evolution, through our consciousness and our own awakening. That's how we activate it. It's not something that scientists need to do or alter in our genetics. It's our divine blueprint that has been dormant for so long because of the 3D interference and the dark players agenda to keep us suppressed, that it's just deactivated DNA that we are activating now. That's how we take control, by going within and trusting in our knowing. And the children are here to teach us that. And you don't have to have children for them to affect your life in a positive way. So for all those people that don't have children are saying, oh, I can't evolve without children, that's not true, because you don't have to have a child. They are here, just their presence, just being around, they shift and alter the vibration of the planet. They can anchor in and shift the vibration of 3D interference. They can open portals. They could heal somebody just by walking by them. So they don't have to be connected to you in a family lineage sort of way in order for them to affect positive change. That's the brilliant part of it.
Yes, I see pets the same way. In fact, specifically that unconditional love. But some of the pets that are coming here, just like the kids, like, man, that's a special cat, or your dog is like, your dog's really deep, dude. Right? I mean, it sounds funny to say these things, but I think that's again, this is what I was talking about, like all the why me's in my life, all the aw shits. I wish, why did that happen? Right? I was sharpening my blade. That's what I was doing. Now I know I was preparing for today, like all these, the wave watch, frequency healing, frequency vibrations. It's the same discussion, actually. This woman was born deaf, or in one ear. She was born without a part. That blessing of being born deaf allowed her to lead to this. Lisa Schermerhorn, again, she writes, "And Every Belief is a Lie," which talks about how we're all programmed all the time, right? Again, if you guys haven't seen that book, it's pretty cool. You should check out Lisa's book. It'll change the way you think, literally, because it talks about, again, these programs that we have, keywords to grammar fraud. You were talking about the spell casting that the kids don't. I mean, I never imagined grammar fraud. Like, I sucked at spelling, or did I? Maybe I was better than I thought, right? Like, again, so what's good and bad. So Lisa, anyway, where I was going with that, Lisa tells a story about this farmer in this little village in Europe, and he was the only guy that had a horse. So he was lucky. He was a very lucky man. He had a horse, and that's a big deal in the old days in Europe. And then his horse ran away. So then he was unlucky. Everybody was like, man, it's bad, sorry about your horse, the whole bit. But then his horse came back with 5 other wild stallions, and they're like, man, you're really lucky. And then one of his sons, trying to break the horse, fell off it and broke his legs, and he was unlucky again. But then the war came, and his son couldn't get drafted because of the broken leg. And it's all in how we perceive it. And I think when we can take the bad stuff, and it's still bad stuff, but understand it's happening for a reason, and then hopefully learn from that. I think that's Campus Earth, right? Vinny and Brandy. I think that's kind of what we're here to learn how to do. I don't know. What do you think of all that?
I think that that's a really beautiful story too, that represents exactly what happens in people's lives all the time. Everything is about our perception, and the higher our vibration and the more spiritually aware we are, our perception is altered in a positive way, because then we look at everybody else not as the enemy, but as, okay, what can I learn from this situation? How have they helped me, even if they've wronged you? Some people, those are sacred contracts that I talk about, where we have those antagonists. We plan ahead of time for somebody to hurt us or to wrong us or to manipulate us in some way, because we learned from that experience, and we should thank them. And I don't mean like physically, like, you know, because that's really hard to do in the moment when you're angry. But when you reflect back, say, oh, okay, Kevin hurt me for a reason. I learned something from that. I thank him for that contract. But instead, what we are programmed to do is, oh, I hate Kevin. I can't believe he did that to me. Can
Right.
you believe it? And now I'm talking to all my friends about you. And then they're projecting their anger onto you. And all the while, what we don't realize is Kevin volunteered before we came into this life and said, all right, Sherri, I'll help you with this. I'm going to hurt you because then you're going to learn something really valuable from this lesson. And we forget all of that because it's really difficult to do that. We use our discernment here because of our perception. But when we alter our perception and we think of things on the macro as opposed to the micro, and that's the biggest advice I can give to people. If you can shift your awareness to the macro, just remove yourself just a little bit and look at the bird's eye view of the situation that you're in. Pretend you're watching your own movie as an observer. And how do you feel about how you're acting? Are you like, oh, I can't believe I said that? You know, that's a really humbling experience to review how you acted in a situation. And we realize a lot of times, man, like I overreacted or that wasn't right. And we have the ability to do that at any point. We don't need to go to a psychic for that. We don't need to go under hypnosis for that. We don't have to do it in dream time. We can do it in real time every day by evaluating how we react to situations, how we treat each other. Forgiveness is a huge one. And so we are more able to do that when we observe from such a perspective that's farther back than this macro, instead of this micro. I can't believe all I can think about is Kevin said this thing to me and I'm so angry about it. If you just stop thinking about what Kevin said, why did Kevin say that? What's the reasoning behind it? And then you start to go back, you realize, okay, I actually do understand his perspective. And then that's where we have this cohesiveness comes in, and the new unity, because we are able to look at each other not as the enemy, but what are they teaching me right now? What am I learning from them, and vice versa? And I think that that's where we are as a collective right now. Many people are starting to do that, but there's still a lot of the negativity around that is hindering people's perception and altering that, and then they have less of ability to kind of learn from these mistakes and these experiences. And that makes it really challenging. But animals are a great part of our collective, because they're souls that are evolved just like us, and they volunteer, and we know them from another life, where they're in our soul family, and they say, all right, Kevin, you're going to struggle probably in this decade. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to be a support, a companion to you, and show you unconditional love when you're going to need it. You're really going to need it. Perhaps you're going to be alone, and maybe you're going to go, inside and be more introverted during this period, or whatever you plan. It doesn't really matter. But the animal's like, I'm going to come in and I'm going to be with you during that period. And they are our biggest spiritual teachers. Talk about spirit guides. Our animals are spirit guides in the physical sense. So they can be here where we can hug them, sleep with them, and they can heal us in being in our presence. So it's another sacred contract. But one of the biggest advice I could give people right now is to reevaluate the contracts that you have in our life, because I think as part of the ascension, we are able to really look at everyone in our life. It doesn't matter who they are, and decide, is this person helping me spiritually evolve right now? And can I make a conscious choice of whether or not I'm going to have them in my life? We have the ability to do that right now and reevaluate. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Are you surrounding yourself with perpetually negative people, or people who love drama, or who talk bad about other people? I won't be friends with people like that, because then it brings my energy down. And I'm not saying I'm perfect or I'm on a high horse or anything like that, but it really matters who you surround yourself with energetically. And if there are people, even if you've known them your whole life, it's a friend that you've known for 20 years, but every time you're around them, you feel low, you feel like you got a headache, you feel like you're just unwell, like they pull you down, you feel it. And then when you're away from them, like, oh, I can breathe again. that is a sign that you need to separate yourself from them and distance yourself and create boundaries. And that's really important right now for people to do. I always tell people it's not bye forever. It's just bye for right now. You know, you might find each other again, but sometimes we need to separate in order to heal. And then when we're both at a better space, we could come back together and understand each other better. And maybe maybe your paths will never cross again, but that might be what's in the best interest for both parties. We don't know.
No, again, I think we are so much on the same page, Sherri. It's unbelievable actually. And yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to follow that up. I think you're spot on with all of these things. And I think I know when I try to give people constructive criticism, I'm going to call it, when I fight with people, I try to do it honestly without hurting people the best that I can. The cognitive distancing that we naturally have for some of these topics. But that's why, I mean, we're out here getting ridiculed and laughed at and called names, and mean people suck. This isn't always easy to figure out what's truth and what's false, and then to be brave enough to come forward and speak your truth. Oh, how dare you, right? We're going to ridicule and laugh, and hell, they cut my brake lines. They're going after friends and family. You know the story. We all face the same things, right? But when I try to fight someone, I'm actually fighting with love, the opposite. This is something I've learned. I've heard lots of other people too. You're mad at so-and-so, wrap them in love, give them some love. It's the opposite of how we'd normally fight. So I think that's important. And I know when I'm out to, I'm going to say destroy someone, right? You know, like when I'm out, then I've got some solid evidence, and I think they need destruction. But at the same time, I'm hoping that they can bring themselves back out of that foundation to build back a better soul, right? I'm in it to help those people. All my haters and enemies, thank you, first of all. Again, you created me. If you just left me alone, I wouldn't be here. But now I looked, and it's not, I mean, the stuff I'm finding might be unbelievable. It might be, again, inconceivable to most normal people, but here it is. Now I'm giving it to you guys. You guys do whatever you want with it. I don't know what to do with it either. I wish I could just solve everything. Go back to deer hunting. That was my plan 5 years ago. It didn't, it's only saving the end of the world. We've been at it 5 years now, Sherri, 5, 6 years. Can't take that long. I think we're close, actually. What do you think of that? What's your timeline here? What do you think this ascension that we've all been talking about? Are we in the middle?
You know, I'm reluctant to give dates, and I talk about that in the book, because divine timing doesn't have a clock. And outside of 3D, there is no time. So time is an illusion. Time is part of 3D. So it's really hard to determine future events based on the time structure. But what I will say is that I have been getting, in many sessions in the past couple of years, 2023 is the year of change. Over and over repeatedly, 2023, 2023, 2023, that's the year, that's the year, that's the year. Now, do I mean that everything is going to be perfect and we're going to be in this beautiful new earth and everything's lovely and there's no challenges? No, but I think we are actually seeing that 2023, we're seeing things are changing, they're shifting, it's uncomfortable. So, you know, the Sound of Freedom wouldn't have come out if we weren't at a certain point. So there's like, regardless of the controversy of that movie right now, and I don't mean to bring it up because there's a lot of people that are speaking out against it and who it's funded by, that's not my point of bringing it up. My point of bringing it up is things like that happen to show us that there's movement, and there's a lot of that right now. So people that say nothing is happening, I don't know where they're living, because I think it's evident and apparent to all of us at this point. I mean, even the news can't even hide some of the stuff happening now. So I do align with 2023 being the year of change, where what they were telling me is we're going to look back 30 years from now and say, oh my God, 2023 was the marker point where we saw a shift and change. And I still am standing by that. And then I think going into 2024 will be the year that, okay, we have shifted. Now, how do we rebuild? Now, what do we do to move forward? But we're still not out of that yet. And 2023 isn't over yet. So we still have some time to go, but I'm feeling very positive. And I'll tell you the same thing that I tell everyone else, and the same thing I put in my book. Everybody has their reasoning for why they think positively or why I have such a positive outlook. Because I have had my moments just like everyone else, where I pull the covers over my face and I say, I want to give up. I don't want to do this anymore. And this sucks. And I want to be negative with everybody else sometimes too, because that's easy. But what keeps me going and has never stopped is the children have continuously said to me in sessions over and over again, we would not be coming in as spiritually evolved beings of a density where we have to descend to come through. We wouldn't do that if we weren't at the point of no return and things weren't evolving exactly as they should. And this is all part of the process. But they assure me I wouldn't be here and we wouldn't keep coming in if it wasn't safe. Because 50 years ago, 100 years ago, when Dolores Cannon, not she wasn't alive talking about it 100 years ago, but
Right.
when she talked about the first wave of volunteers coming through and the volunteers before that and the second wave, humanity wasn't ready yet. So a lot of those volunteers, unfortunately, as she talked about in her book and public interviews, you know, they recluse, they became drug addicts, they committed suicide. You know, they weren't able to follow through on their commitment because they were just met with so much negativity and they couldn't handle the 3D. So a lot of them stepped back and stopped coming in. And now we see a huge influx from 2000, the year 2000 to the present, where they're coming in. I call them like comets, which is why my
Nice.
nonprofit for children is the logo shows comets coming in, because they come in like comets and they're like, we're not stopping. So for me, as long as we have these beautiful children continuing to come through, I know personally for me that it's a sign and a validation that things are going exactly the way they should. It may not be in the timing that I would choose or you would choose or anyone else, but it's in divine timing. And you can't, when there's so many things, so many variables involved in an ascension, and we have the dark players throwing everything they possibly can to slow things down, to sabotage everything. There are counter moves. That's why they always refer to it as
Yeah.
5D chess and beyond. It's quantum. So there's no way to determine time in that reality because it's reaction. There's defense. There's offense, and it's just going. It's bouncing back and forth. And so you can't, like, anybody giving dates, I just stopped listening to them because how many times can people get upset and frustrated when those dates come and go and nothing happens? All it's doing is bringing people down. And so if we just stop looking at dates and we all focus our consciousness on, okay, how can I be of service? How can I step out of ego? How can I keep my shadow side in check? How can I heal? How can I forgive and make steps to do that and work on the self? Then we wouldn't have the distractions wouldn't work. People would be going within and not caring about what truthers are saying here or what this politician is saying there. It wouldn't even matter. But
Right. Just do
that's where
you.
we are.
Well, no,
Yeah.
and I agree with that, but I see there's twofold here because like if I was taking you hunting and we have to hike to one of the top of one of these big old Vermont mountains over here, you're going to get tired and you're going to get probably a little grumpy and you're going to want to quit on me. And you keep asking like, how much
Probably.
farther, Kevin? And anybody that's hunted with me will tell you it's only 100 yards. That's always the answer. It's only 100, or my kids on a road trip, another 10 minutes, right? And I'll say
Yeah,
that
it's always 10 more minutes.
it's to get us again this far, that that much farther up the hill,
Mhm.
so to speak. But I think you're right, it's God's will, God's way, and then God's time, which I argue with that last one all the time. But I think we're exactly where God wants us to be, where we're supposed to be, because that's where he put us. Like, how's that for a theory, right? You're right where you're supposed to be, everybody watching. And I know when I first started to wake up, and I'm going to go back, 6, 7 years ago, probably for the first 2 or 3 years, I felt so late. There was a whole bunch of anxious, I was very anxious because
Mhm.
I had to know everything, and I felt like I should have been ahead. But now I feel pretty comfortable where I am. Like I almost feel like, this is so ignorant to say. I almost feel like I got the 3D plane figured out. The politicians and the corruption and the system and all the crap. Like, I'm running for governor and, fair elections, and it feels like it's about this big, to be honest. That seems so small to me compared to all of the other things that we're talking about. And I do think it's a spiritual thing, not a religious thing, but I do think it's spiritual. You helped me along that path, Sherri. Like I said, you opened a lot of doors for me too, or opened my own mind so that I could remember. I think I think time is a loop. I don't think it's linear. What do you think of that?
Oh, it's absolutely not linear. I have been told that so many times I can't even argue it anymore. Not that I did. But you know, we like to play devil's advocate sometimes and we're like, well, what if and this and that. But I'm like, no, that's how it is. And so a lot of our lifetimes, there really is no such thing as a past life. It's, you know, it's a parallel life. So these other lifetimes that we've lived are all happening at the same time, which is why we can influence right now. Look at Atlantis and how Atlantis fell with technology and power. We are in the exact same space time right now, just in a different era. We can affect the Atlantis right now, just like they can affect us and so on, and the Lemurian and the time of Christ. All is happening at the same time, which is way too far out for some people to grasp. And I get it. It took me a while to feel comfortable with it. But I trust in that knowing, because the linear time is part of the 3D matrix. It is part of the illusion. And when you macro yourself out, you're like, oh yeah, that actually makes more sense. And which is why people are having spontaneous memories of past lives. They don't need to go to the hypnotist anymore. They're like, oh my God, I just remembered this life. I know, or we're dreaming about it. How many people watching this right now? Let us know in the comments. Have had multiple dreams even where you're like, okay, I don't know the house I was in, but I had the same children, but it was a completely different house. And you can tell the exact layout to a T as if you knew that place inside and out. And variations were changed. But the core structure was the same. And it's so real. You know, that is another lifetime that you're living with those same people in a different home, in a different state, in a different part of the world. But we're seeing it now more. People are starting to get bleed throughs in their dreams. And it's really cool that we're all having these experiences. We're becoming more multidimensional, Kevin, as the density of the planet shifts, of the consciousness density and the dimension shifts into fifth dimension. Our senses are heightened, our abilities are heightened, we trust in our knowing, and we think differently, our perspective shifts, everything changes, and our priorities change, and we don't care. You know, I work with a lot of men, specifically men that were on Wall Street or that were lawyers who were very much in the corporate world, had all the money in the world, and they weren't happy, and they finally got to the point where they're like, help me find myself, because this isn't fulfilling. And they don't, none of it matters. None of the achievements, none of the awards on their wall, the money, the cars, the houses, the boats. They're not fulfilled because none of that matters. It's how you feel is your spirit fulfilled? And there's that, I want to help other people. I want to feel gratitude for something other than material things and money. Can you help me do that? And that to me is a beautiful sign. The more that we see that, our people are waking up and they're realizing, oh my gosh, I've been programmed to think that this is life. And everything and all of these things make me happy, but do they really make you happy? And the friends that you have as a result of all of those things sometimes aren't really your real friends. They're using you for those things. And it's a huge life lesson that many are learning right now. But again, it's part of this process of ascension. That's where we are. That's what the book's about, to learn all of these things. And then instead of getting mad about it, you make a change. That's the beautiful thing. Every single day is a clean slate to be a better version of yourself. Every single day, you could be a better you. And sometimes we mess up, and I'm a bad mom. And I'll even say, gosh, I really failed today. I let my impatience and my anxiety or my stress or my anger that had nothing to do with my kids, and I took it out on them. Shame on me for doing that. But instead of living in shame, I just allow myself to feel that, because we should be allowed to feel shame and anger and judge ourselves. It's okay. That's fine. But it's what you do next. You say, all right, no, I'm not. I'm going to do better. And you say, tomorrow, I'm going to be a better mom. And then you work towards that. And then soon you get yourself out of that loop, that repetitive pattern of being, you know, a nasty person or an angry person or whatever, a bitter person, whatever you've been. It's all about getting out of the loop. This 3D is designed as a repetitive pattern. You know, hypnosis, when I learned hypnosis, because I have a master level hypnotherapy certification, and they teach us it's all about repetition. Everything we do, we develop patterns, good or bad. And so when we're in these repetitive patterns in the 3D of money, 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 ego, ego, judgment, you know, comparing ourselves to other people, impossible standards, we don't realize we're in this repetitive loop. We don't even realize it. So when we step out of it, we look and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I was in there. You can see it so much clearly when you're out of it, but when you're in it, you don't realize it. And I think that a lot of people are stepping out of that loop right now.
Yeah, we're watching. I've never seen more unity, and the hardest journey to take is the journey within. When you start really looking at yourself and try to change stuff, that's the tough one, right? Not always friendly what you see. And I think we're all works in progress, right? We're all, and one of my biggest joys right now actually is watching that progress through other people. And I'm watching those material things fade away. In my experience, I I've never been as broke financially as I've been right now in my life, but I've never been as rich as I've been. I'm very happy. I'm free. I'm like, there's a lot to this, guys. So pay attention to it. So I think that's, again, a key in this. You gotta don't lose sight of that 50,000-foot view, the bigger picture. And my experience says it's not the, the what, why, when, where, or how. It's the who in life. And as you get older, you see that with our parents and then our grandparents, same thing. Like, what really matters to them in the end is their family, their loved ones, those people close to our heart. And I think one of the big lessons that I've learned now, I guess I knew, but I really learned and believe it, is that we're eternal, that we don't die. So if that's the truth, and I believe it is, then none of this really matters, other than just like doing the right thing. And I don't know, in the service to others, helping people, that makes me feel good. That's what actually gives me satisfaction. And, that's what makes me rich. And I think you feel the same way, don't you?
Absolutely. Having compassion for others, it's such a self-centered reality that we find ourselves in. And the 3D interference again has everything to do with that, with the celebrities and the elite. They put all these people on a pedestal and it's all about me, and what I have and what you don't. And then people live that out in their life and they can't possibly compare it to these beauty standards, and that's what they get, these young girls. They think, my daughter looks at that and she thinks that's normal. And I'm like, do you know how many hours they spend on makeup, and they have stylists and they have nutritionists, and this isn't normal. They don't just wake up and they look like that. The reality is a lot of our youth doesn't put that together. And so they live these impossible standards, but also it's just having compassion for life. The other day, and I think this was an experience my daughter needed to have. We went to the beach because I'm right near, in Florida near the beach. Okay, this guy next to us had a crab. Well, he thought it was a lobster. So we're like, oh, cool. What's this lobster? We go over to him. We're all looking, and I'm like, where'd you find this? And he's like, oh, in that. And I look over. I didn't even know what it was. I looked like a coconut. It was like in the sand. And I'm like, that's odd. And I was like, well, maybe, so he's taking this lobster to the ocean to let it go free. And if you have any brain cells, you start putting two and two together, you realize that's a hermit crab. And you just took it out of its shell. And when I told him that, he's like, oh, well, she'll find another shell. The saddest thing about it is there was babies. This hermit crab, by the way, was this big. So it
Wow.
was one of those big, what do they call those? The conch shells, or what they call it? The
There's
big ones that you
the conch, yeah.
conch shells? Yeah.
Yeah, conch.
Yeah. And the baby, there were two baby crabs inside. This was a mom and her babies. That was their home. And I tried to tell him, like, you should put her back in there. And he was like, oh, it's just this like typical, you know, human that garbage, I'm sorry, that just has no regard for other life. And he, in front of his three children, just yanked this being out of its life, everything it knew, and its babies, threw it in the ocean, probably didn't even survive, all because he wanted to take that shell for himself. He would not give that back. Do you see?
Wow.
Like, I wanted to cry. I was so upset. And my daughter was really upset about it. And I said, you see human decency, and how is his life, how is the hermit crab's life not important? Why did that guy get to rip that crab out? Why is that? are we that important? And like it helped her process kind
Yeah,
of
sweet.
that reality. But I was so upset. And I'm like, this is what's wrong with the world.
Mm.
People have no decency, and they don't have any regard for other people, let alone other animals.
A lot of them, I don't know if they really completely understand. They wanted to shell, so they kicked their crab out as a whole real story. I know in the springtime, I constantly, every year, I warn people, like, don't touch the baby ducks or the deer or they're,
Mhm.
you know, if mom's not around, she's not far, let them. But people, they don't know better, and their intention is good. They want to help the deer or help the babies, and it usually has, you know, the opposite effect, right? But
Exactly.
that, again, that understanding, I think, is what you go back to, Sherri, is having a better understanding of not just yourself, but the world around you. And I think it's all
Yeah.
how you hold that. What's the name of your book? I don't even know if we talk. What is the actual name of it?
Yeah, it's called Starseeds and the Great Awakening. It just published 3 days ago at this point. It's available on Amazon. It will be available on Barnes and Noble, but it takes a lot longer to publish through them. So right now it's available on Amazon. And I'm super excited about this book. I highly recommend everybody with an open mind to check it out, because you're going to learn a lot from
Well, me too. We'll give it the Grassroots Warrior stamp of approval
it.
and the Kevin Hoyt stamp too, because I'm definitely interested in it. And I mean, do you still have your page up and your school, and give me some more links. Let's give them to
Yeah.
the people.
Yeah, so Aramis Creative Learning Center is our platform, our virtual learning platform for children. We are giving our mentors a break because we have worked 2 years in a row without a break, offering classes every single month, and mentors needed a break. So they're taking July and August off. So there are no classes being offered right now, but we do have a digital library of some pre-recorded classes that are always available. But we won't be offering classes for children again until September. But my website has a new name. It used to be intuitivewellnesscenter.com. It's now sherridivband.com, just to make it easy. So all of my platforms are just my name. I changed everything. So my Instagram, my website, my Rumble page, my YouTube channel, everything is just my name, just to make it unified and easy for people to
Mhm.
remember. But I offer sessions, soul readings for intuitive healing and coaching for adults as well as children. And I have a really fun, because most people who know me well now know that I'm an animal nurse by trade, for 20 years. So I have a lot, and I did animal communication for a long time. And so a lot of people have been asking me recently, you wouldn't believe how many people are asking me, can you do animal readings again? Or can you talk about animals? So I've just put up a webinar for August 6th, at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And so if anyone's interested, I'll talk about animals for an hour, and then I'll do some Q&A. And it'll be a good time because we'll focus just on pets, sacred species, wildlife,
Wow.
and it'll be a good time. So I'm excited because I haven't talked about animals that much in the last few years because I've been so focused on the children. So that's going to be fun.
There you go. The amazing Sherri
Yeah.
Divband, in high demand as always. And I'm going to lead as example again, because when you called and said, you know, I'm going to back off, and that sucks for Kevin Hoyt and the Grassroots Warrior and all this. But at the same time, I'm very excited because I know Sherri Divband's a doer. And if you're letting go of this, it's only to go to bigger, better things. And you've already promised you're going to give us a show every once in a while. So it's not
Yeah.
the end.
Not
I
the end.
know.
It's not goodbye.
No, I know it's not. And again, I'm excited about that. So I look forward to seeing what you do. I know you're going to do it, Sherri. So you want to say
Yeah.
anything to everybody in closing, and we'll call it a show.
Yeah, well, again, just thank you to everybody for I have such a great community of support. People are always emailing me and saying how much they support the work that I do, and they encourage me. So, I do talk about sometimes the negative and the psychic attacks, but I just want to take a moment to recognize and thank everybody that does the opposite and that supports me and helps me, like you, Kevin. I mean, I just called you and I said, hey, can I talk about my new book? And you set me up with like 3 other interviews. It's those types of things where we build each other up and we have a community. That's how we combat all of this negative stuff. So thank you to everybody. I have so much gratitude for all the beautiful people out there. There is good in the world, and and we're finding each other. That's the thing. We're finally able to find each other through these platforms. So it's such a beautiful thing. So Thank you for having me back on, and I'll have a couple shows here and there on in the Grassroots Warriors Network. So it's not the end of me. But yes, I will focus my attention on some of the bigger things that I need to get done right now. And but I'm so humbled to know you, Kevin. So it's an honor to be on your channel and to be talking to you today.
Well, thanks. And again, our community, you're always part of the community, even if you go, again, I'm excited because I know you're going to do big things. We're calling it a colony now, though, right? Colony. Come join the colony, Grassroots Warrior Network only on Rumble. And be sure to check out Sherri. Go to all of her sites. And we're going to have all of that along with a link to buy the book in the video description. So please share and wish Sherri good luck. And thanks for joining me, Sherri. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you again real soon. See ya.
Bye.